The stars shimmered like secrets overhead, silent witnesses to humanity's first interstellar message. It hadn't come in peace. It hadn't come in war. It had come as a question. Why did you lie? The words arrived not through static or coded pulses, but in fluent, accented English broadcast through every satellite, screen, and speaker humanity owned. Within hours, the message was everywhere, and no one could answer it. Not even Dr. Tessa Raines, the woman who'd spent 20 years preparing Earth for first contact. Now, she stood in the Geneva Control Complex, surrounded by generals, diplomats, and trembling scientists. Her face was calm, but her hands twitched behind her. Back, the aliens were near. The ship hovered in low orbit, silent, unmoving, wrapped in a mist of reflective plasma like a ghost of war past. They knew English before we said a word. General McCrae muttered, squinting at the display. That's not contact. That's surveillance. Tessa didn't reply. She was staring at the waveform the alien message had piggybacked on. Embedded in it was something no one else had noticed, a pulse pattern she hadn't seen in almost 2 decades. She'd buried it in a black archive, under false credentials and sealed reports. It had been hers. A test signal, a hoax, she'd launched from a Chilean observatory in her reckless youth, just to see if anything answered back. Nothing ever had. Or so she thought. Now, staring at that pulse, she remembered the moment she turned the transmitter off, whispered, "Is anyone out there?" and waited alone in the dark. The cold wind, the ticking of the old radar, and her foolish hope. She had told no one, and the signal had vanished. Until now. "We have to respond," said the UN liaison. "They're waiting. They already know more than we do." McCrae said, "Maybe we stall. Play dumb." But the lights in the room flickered. Every display turned black. A single line of text appeared on each screen in white letters. "We listened. You pretended not to hear." Tessa stepped forward slowly. Her voice trembled but carried. "I want to go up there." The room erupted. "Absolutely not. This is a military matter. They could kill you. They already know me," she said quietly. "They've known me longer than you have." Hours later, she sat alone in the launch capsule, staring up at the glowing ship above. The shuttle hummed to life. As Earth receded behind her, she opened a small compartment hidden under her seat. Inside was a worn notebook, pages filled with her old signal experiments, coordinates, forgotten theories, and one folded piece of paper with a handwritten phrase. "If they answer, remember who you were when you asked." The ship loomed closer. Its hull shifted colors like it was alive. The shuttle connected. No guards, no weapons, just a passage opening into a corridor of light. She stepped inside, and froze. A voice greeted her from the silence. Not alien, familiar. "Hello again, Tessa." She turned. Standing before her was a man, a human man, aged gray at the temples, but unmistakably someone she'd known, someone who had vanished 21 years ago in Antarctica. During her early research days, someone she'd mourned. "Eli," he smiled sadly. "You should have told them the truth." The corridor darkened behind her. Her heartbeat thundered. "But how are you?" "They didn't come to invade," Eli whispered. "They came to return something." Tessa stepped back. "Return what?" He raised a trembling hand and pointed toward a second door, opening slowly. Inside was a child, sleeping, human, no more than 6, with Tessa's eyes, and the ship shuddered as alarms blared through Earth's orbit. Another signal was coming. From deep space, from more of them, and this time, it wasn't just a question. Tessa couldn't breathe. The air in the alien corridor felt heavy, like memory pressing against her lungs. Her fingers trembled as she stared at the sleeping child inside the chamber. Her child. She knew it instantly, not because of the eyes, not even the soft dimple in the left cheek she'd had as a girl, but because deep in her bones, something ancient and maternal stirred to life. She turned to Eli, her voice hoarse. "You said they're returning something. Why her? How is she even real?" Eli looked older than she remembered, and not just in years. There was a hollowness behind his eyes, the kind that comes from knowing things that unravel sanity. "Tessa, she's not just your child. She's the answer to the lie." The ship vibrated again, softer now, like it was reacting to the conversation. She looked around. No walls, no seams, just flowing, silver light that bent and shifted like it was listening, watching. "You disappeared during the polar expedition," she said slowly. "We thought you fell into the crevasse. We searched for days. I thought you were dead. I was taken," Eli replied. "They didn't understand us at first. They didn't mean to. They were looking for minds. Questioners. They called it resonance. Your signal hit them, Tessa. Your curiosity woke something up. They didn't just hear the frequency, you matched it. You were the variable they didn't expect." Tessa stepped closer to the child, her hands hovering above the glass. "And this child, she's the result of that." Eli nodded. "They grew her from a pattern. Your mind, your DNA, your fears, your questions. They watched Earth for years, through her, learned our languages, our wars, our hearts. And when they were ready, they built a vessel to send her home." Tessa felt her knees buckle. But why not just come openly? Why wait? Why the message? Eli looked down, pain carving deeper lines into his face, because Earth betrayed the signal. Someone else heard it too, and they came first. Frozu, the architects of silence, Eli whispered. The ones who erase contact. They've been doing it for millennia. Every time a species hears the stars and responds. The architects destroy the evidence, erase the memory, reset civilizations. No, that's not possible, she whispered. He stepped forward, grabbed her hand. They came to Earth in 2011. You remember the storms? The observatory fire. That wasn't natural. They tried to stop your signal from spreading. The reason it took so long to respond is because these beings, these real first contact species, had to hide, and now, their cover is broken. As he spoke, red lights began to pulse along the walls. The ship was no longer silent. Whispers filled the air, layered, voices in languages that didn't belong to Earth, and a single word kept repeating in English. Incoming. Something's approaching, Eli said, turning toward the glowing wall. They're almost here. Who? The ones who silence stars. Tessa reached down and touched the chamber glass. The child stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and when she looked at Tessa, her first word was not mother. It was, run. The ship shook violently. Outside, Earth's satellites blinked out one by one as a dark object emerged from the void. Massive, silent, not reflecting light, but devouring it. It looked like a shard of night itself. Humanity's systems began to fail. Communications died. Global power grids flickered. In orbit, Earth's defense satellites were coming online, but it wouldn't matter. This was beyond weapons. They found us, Eli said, voice steady now, and they won't stop with us. If they get to the surface, Earth loses its memory of contact, forever. Tessa stared out through the glowing wall, her heart thundering. Then what do we do? Eli turned to her, and for a moment, the ship itself seemed to bend around his words. We make Earth remember. Suddenly, the chamber holding the child hissed open. The child stood barefoot on the luminous floor, staring not at Tessa but at the approaching darkness. Her skin shimmered faintly. She raised her hand, and the blackness slowed. Eli whispered, "She's more than your daughter, Tessa. She's the key to making truth permanent." Tessa opened her mouth to ask how, when the ship jolted hard, and a beam of shadow pierced the hull like a spear of nothing, and the child was gone, vanished in a blink of silver and silence. Tessa screamed. The ship's walls sealed. Eli rushed forward, smashing his fists against the closed door. The corridor shook. A low hum filled the ship, rising, angry, ancient. And then a voice, deep, emotionless, mechanically code through every frequency on Earth. Contact terminated. Purge initiated. Tessa's breath caught, and Earth's sky turned red. The red sky rippled like a curtain being pulled across the heavens. Cities across Earth tilted their heads upward in fear, unsure if this was war or warning. The atmosphere shimmered unnaturally. Satellites spiraled out of control, and every screen blinked, the same phrase, purge initiated. Inside the alien ship, Tessa clutched the wall as another quake rocked the corridor. Eli slammed his palm against a control panel that hadn't existed a moment earlier. Lights shifted. The walls flowed into new shapes, forming doorways, steps, strange glowing veins. She's not gone, he said quickly. They didn't kill her. They extracted her. Extracted where? Tessa shouted over the rising hum. You said they came to return her. They came to return her before the architects found us. Now they're hiding her again. Tessa grabbed his shoulder. She looked at the darkness. It slowed. What is she? Eli met her eyes. She's a living archive. They call her a recall, a being that stores unerasable memory, immune to architect purge. They made her from you because you were the one who asked the original question. Your doubt, your wonder, it echoed. They built her to carry the truth forward, no matter what happens to the rest of us. The walls hissed open again, this time forming a narrow passage with blinking white lights along the floor. A voice, not the alien ship, but one embedded in Tessa's mind, spoke with gentle clarity. Follow the path. Stop the purge. Eli stepped forward, motioning for her to move. They're giving us one chance. The architects erase planets through entropy-disrupting memory, belief, even historical record. But they can't erase what's stored in recall. If we find her and activate her memory imprint, we can anchor Earth's awareness. Even if the rest burns, someone will remember. Tessa moved. The corridor twisted downward, then upward, then out, like space itself bent under the urgency. Doors appeared, opened into impossible rooms. One of them, the Chilean observatory, where Tessa sent the original signal. Another, her university lab. And then, chillingly, her childhood bedroom. These aren't illusions, Eli said. They're memories. Hers. Tessa paused in the bedroom. Her stuffed bear was on the pillow. The curtains were yellow with sunflowers, just like she remembered, except this version had a humming light on the wall above the dresser, pulsing slowly. She absorbed my memories, Tessa whispered. She's dreaming of them. They're her compass, Eli said. And that pulse, that's her recall beacon. We follow it. Suddenly, the entire room shook. The light turned red. A hiss sounded from the wall behind them, and something stepped through. It was tall, humanoid, but wrong. Thin, elongated limbs. No face, only shifting static where features should be. Its body didn't walk so much as flicker forward, blipping into existence with each footstep. Architect, Eli growled. Run. They sprinted. The creature glitched after them. Every step warping the space it passed through. Walls crumbled into ash. Memories dissolved mid-image. The bear turned to static and fell apart. Tessa felt pain sear through her skull. Names vanished from her mind, people she loved, moments she treasured. Gone. Like someone had burned holes in her memory. Eli stumbled and fell. The architect reached for him, fingers unraveling into black ribbons. Tessa turned, pulled him up, and threw a metal tray into the creature's path. It paused. Keep moving. Eli gasped, gripping her hand. They pushed forward into the next chamber. It was a nursery. The child stood at its center, but she was different, now floating inches above the floor, eyes glowing softly, surrounded by a sphere of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. She spoke without moving her mouth. They are inside you, Mother. Tessa staggered. What? Eli stepped back. No, she means the architect burst into the room. And Tessa fell to her knees. Visions overwhelmed her. Images not her own. Stars she'd never seen. Lives she'd never lived. Alien contact across centuries. Other species, other recalls. All of them, gone, and one final vision. A man, human, laughing with her in the observatory, but not Eli, a different man. She gasped. Eli, you weren't there when I sent the signal. He didn't respond. She turned slowly. Eli was standing still, too still. His face flickered. Not aging, glitching. She stepped back. You're not Eli. The figure smiled. The voice changed. I'm the memory of what you trusted most. Tessa screamed as the false Eli lunged. But the child raised her hand. A pulse exploded through the room, shattering the architect in a burst of white fire. And the false Eli dissolved into dust. Tessa collapsed, breath ragged, eyes wide with horror and clarity. The child looked down at her. They've already reached Earth's core archive. If we don't stop them in the next hour, humanity will forget it was ever more than alone. Tessa stood, wiping blood from her lip. Then tell me, where to go? The floor below her opened, and she fell into darkness. Wind screamed past her ears as Tessa plunged through the darkness. But there was no air, no friction, no weight. It wasn't falling, it was being moved. Ripped through layers of thought, not space. Memories flared around her. Her first telescope, her mother's funeral, the night she first heard Eli's laugh, all flickering like dying stars, then vanishing into the void. Then, without warning, she landed. A soft, metallic thud. She was on her feet in a chamber unlike anything else aboard the alien ship. It was black, pure black, swallowing even the idea of light. Only a thin red ring pulsed along the far wall, like the heartbeat of something ancient and buried. The air was thick, heavy with meaning, and then she realized she wasn't alone. Figures surrounded her. Not people, not aliens, echoes, each one a version of her. Some older, some younger. One with burn scars across her cheek, one dressed in military armor, one holding a newborn baby. They stood like statues, eyes closed, whispering the same word under their breath. Remember. The child appeared again suddenly, quietly, barefoot and glowing. This is the core memory ring, she said softly. They're trying to delete the blueprint of human potential, the thoughts that never became actions, the truths never spoken. Tessa turned in a slow circle. But how do you delete potential? The child's gaze grew hard. You don't destroy it, you override it. You replace hope with fear, curiosity, with silence. Behind them, a faint click. Tessa turned, heart pounding. A new door had opened. On the other side stood a man in a white lab coat. Her father. He smiled warmly. Tessa, it's time to go home. She froze. You died when I was 8. He opened his arms. You never questioned where the telescope came from, or why I made you look at the stars. I was never from Earth. Not entirely. Her legs felt weak. No, that's not. The child stepped between them. He's another memory infection. Another architect. If he touches you, the blueprint is lost. Tessa's father's smile didn't fade. You think you're saving Earth, but Earth is the lie. Your signal didn't wake us, it created us. The red ring began to spin faster now. The echoes of Tessa began screaming. One by one, they burned away into ash. Stop, she shouted. The child reached into her own chest and pulled something out, something glowing and humming like a living star. A crystal orb, but inside it swirled moments. A first kiss, the launch of Voyager, a baby's cry, laughter during war. It was Earth, not its facts, its essence. Place this into the ring, she said. It's the last pure memory. It'll lock the core. Tessa took the orb, her fingers trembling. Her father stepped forward. If you do that, you'll be alone in knowing the truth. Everyone else will forget. You'll be the madwoman screaming into a deaf world. No one will believe you. Tessa looked down at the orb. felt its weight, the cost of truth. The child spoke again, quieter this time, one will remember. A child of Earth, born after the purge. They will awaken, and they will find your memory. The fake father grew taller now, monstrous, his skin melting into metallic bone. I offer you peace, it said. Forget, sleep, let the lie remain. Tessa ran. The creature roared, and the blackness exploded behind her. The ground shook, echoes of herself screamed, and vanished. The red ring opened like a mouth. She leaped, thrust the orb into the core. White light flooded the chamber. The architect shrieked, and was gone. Silence. Tessa floated now, alone in pure white. Then, a voice. The purge failed. But you are erased from history. She opened her eyes. She was back in Geneva, but no one knew her. She was no longer Dr. Tessa Raines. Her lab was gone. Her research vanished. The world was calm. No red sky. No memory of the alien ship. People passed her on the street like she didn't exist. She lived in alleys. Scribbled notes in journals no one would ever read. She spoke to children who laughed and ran away. She screamed at the stars until her voice cracked. She remembered everything, and no one else remembered anything. Until, one day, years later, a little girl approached her. Barefoot, bright eyes, familiar face. Are you the lady who asked the question? She said. Tessa wept. The girl opened her hand. Inside it was the orb. Glowing again. An earth sky began to shimmer because the stars had started whispering once more. The girl's hand trembled as she held out the orb, and Tess, older now, weary and thin from years of being erased, felt a rush of warmth crawl up her arms as her fingers closed around it. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat, a low hum vibrating through her bones. She looked into the girl's eyes and saw her, not the child from the ship, but a continuation, a thread spun from the last spark of truth that refused to die. What's your name? Tessa asked, voice brittle with disbelief. The girl tilted her head. They called me many things. But I waited for you to name me. Tessa knelt in the alley where she'd spent so many forgotten years. For a moment, the world slowed. The sky above was clear, blue, quiet, but she could feel the edges bending again, like something just beyond the veil was pressing inward. Lyra, she whispered. Your name is Lyra. The girl smiled, and something ancient shimmered behind her eyes. Data, memory, light. They're coming back, Lyra said. The architects felt the orb reactivate. They won't ignore it this time. Tessa stood slowly. Then we show them what humanity does when it remembers. Across the world, strange phenomena began to unfold. Children with unfamiliar dreams. Artists painting constellations no one could name. Scientists hearing faint music in cosmic background radiation. Something was waking up inside humanity and knowing. A hum beneath their skin. And at the edge of Earth's orbit, something darker was stirring. 3 architect vessels, monolithic, void-colored leviathans, merged from subspace. This time, they didn't cloak, they didn't hide. Their mission had changed. No more erasure. Now, containment. They're going to wall Earth off, Lyra said as she and Tessa walked together through the empty city. Sever us from the stars. Lock us into a bubble reality. How long do we have? Tessa asked. Lyra paused. 17 hours. Tessa closed her eyes. Just one breath. Then the plan came together faster than thought. We need to find the others. The ones like you. The ones who remember things they never lived. Lyra nodded. They're already waking up. Across the globe, 6 individuals were coming on lean engineers, farmers, street poets, a homeless man in New Delhi who'd built a telescope from discarded lenses and could sketch galaxies. He had no name for Tessa and Lyra reached the ruins of the old observatory by dawn. Beneath the dust and fallen girders, the original receiver dish still hummed faintly. The child placed the orb into the center. It sank like a seed into earth. Once we amplify this, Tessa said, adjusting the rusted paneling, it'll broadcast the memory of contact to every human on Earth. In a burst, but only if we're not erased first. Lyra said. And then came the tremor. The sky split not in metaphor, but in substance. A rift opened above them, lightless and quiet, and from it, a voice boomed out in sound, but in understanding. Your species has been corrupted by recursion. You must forget to survive. Tessa looked up, defiant. We'd rather remember and die free. The architects began to descend. The ground cracked. Trees withered. Signals died. But Lyra stood still, her eyes glowing white-hot now. The orb in the dish pulsed faster. And then she did something strange. She stepped into the beam. Her body became pure energy, streaming upward through the receiver dish into the sky. Her voice echoed across all frequencies. I am memory unbroken. I am the question unanswered. I am what you feared we would become. Across Earth, every screen flickered. Images poured through alien ships. Contact. The first signal, the child, the purge. And then came the faces. Tessa's, Eli's, Lyra's. Billions saw what had been stolen. The architects screamed. Their ships began to unravel. Not destroyed, forgotten, like the very idea of them was being rejected by Earth's new memory field. Lyra's voice faded, and she was gone. The The orb turned to dust, and Earth remembered. The next morning, the world didn't reset. There was no going back. People awoke, knowing they weren't alone, that their past had been stolen, and something in them, curiosity, wonder, purpose, had returned. Tessa sat on the hill beside the crater where the observatory once stood. She waited for Lyra to return. She didn't, but the stars had changed. They were no longer silent. They whispered to Earth now, and Earth whispered back. The whispers never stopped. They slipped into dreams, hummed in subway tunnels, vibrated through concrete and skin and song. Across the world, people remembered things they never lived, languages they'd never spoken, constellations they'd never named. History textbooks began to rewrite themselves. The timeline trembled. Humanity wasn't alone, and had never been. They just forgot. Tessa wandered the ruins of the observatory for days, surviving on instinct, half expecting Lyra to materialize from starlight, but she didn't. Not as a girl, not as energy. She had been memory itself, and now that memory had rooted itself inside every living human. And that's when the dreams began. Not hers, everyone's, shared dreams. Collective visions, a city of glass floating above a red ocean, a silver obelisk turning slowly beneath Saturn's rings, a woman with Tessa's face whispering a warning to a crowd of people who'd never seen Earth. Tessa followed the signs. She traveled across the old world, Africa, then Mongolia, then the Siberian void, each step guided by symbols burned into her mind. It wasn't madness, it was recall. She'd become a conduit now, too, not just the first voice, but the first listener. She reached Antarctica on the 12th day. And there, beneath a frozen mountain that hadn't existed a year before, she found the archive. It wasn't built. It was grown, veins of silver running through ice like roots. Inside, human figures drifted in stasis, each one a blueprint, a mirror, a possibility. 16,000 of them, each one pulsing with thought. Then a voice, one she hadn't heard in weeks. You opened the door. Now you must choose which future steps through it. She turned. Lyra stood there. Not a child anymore, but ageless, glowing from within, her eyes burning like twin galaxies. You died, Tessa whispered. Lyra smiled. I did what memory does. I passed on. I became part of everything. Tessa touched her shoulder. It was warm, real, and yet not. What is this place? Lyra's voice softened. A fail-safe, a possibility chamber. These aren't clones, they're versions. Every path humanity could have taken but didn't. Worlds lost. Choices unmade. Until now, they slept, but you changed that. Tessa walked among the frozen figures. Some had wings, some wore armor of crystal, some had eyes that were pure white. Each one breathed slowly, waiting. For what? Lyra looked up. For the next question. Suddenly the archive shuddered. A pulse of dread ran through the walls. A new presence. Not architect. Worse. Someone else heard the recall burst. Lyra whispered. Someone outside the architect domain. Someone older. The chamber flickered. A figure stepped from the shadows. It was her. Another Tessa, but older, colder, scarred from 1,000 battles across realities. I'm the path where Earth chose war, she said, her voice like breaking metal, where we fought back, and we won. Tessa blinked. You're from one of the possibilities. The soldier. Tessa nodded. I came to warn you. The recall burst didn't just wake Earth, it echoed outward, and something heard, something that eats timelines. It's coming here. Lyra turned pale. Chronovores, the name echoed like a scream inside the archive. Time eaters, beings that feed, not on flesh, but on possibility. Tessa stepped forward. What do we do? The soldier. Tessa pointed to the stasis pods. You choose a future, one path, one version of humanity to become. We don't have the power to be all of them. The others will be consumed. But the one you choose will survive. Tessa looked around. So many versions of humanity. Brave, strange, beautiful, terrifying. She trembled. If I choose wrong, the walls cracked. A terrible wail echoed through the chamber. No time, Lyra said. They're here. Tessa ran to the center of the chamber. The control panel rose from the floor, formed from memory metal, waiting for her touch. Which version? She whispered. Which future? She closed her eyes and remembered a night long ago, looking at the stars, asking the question, are we alone? Then she pressed her hand to the panel. Everything flashed white. The archive screamed, and time collapsed inward toward the one choice she had made. And everything else, every possibility she didn't choose, began to burn. The fire of collapsing timelines was silent, like watching an entire library fall into the sea without a single splash. The archive shook as paths once infinite were torn from existence. The 16,000 versions of humanity, each frozen in crystal, began to fracture. Some screamed, some sang, some simply vanished, like dreams slipping between waking fingers. The chamber dimmed, the cold grew, but the one she chose remained. The pod in the center opened. Light poured out, but it wasn't harsh. It was warm. Golden. Inside stood a human, not unlike herself, taller, ageless, with silver threads in their hair, and eyes like distant nebulas. Their skin shimmered faintly, not with technology, but with history. Every movement they made felt like it had already happened and was still about to. Tessa stepped back, trembling. Use single quotes read ... us. The figure nodded. I am the strand you chose. The future, where Earth did not forget itself. Where curiosity was not killed. Where war did not bury wonder. Lyra looked up at them, awe etched in her small, glowing face. Can you stop the Chronovores? The figure turned toward the crumbling archive. Not stop, but reroute. If you give me control of the burst's echo, I can lure them into the fracture. Tessa hesitated. They'll feed on the timelines we destroyed. Yes, said the future human. But only on the ashes. Not the living root. Another pulse rocked the mountain. From the cracks in the chamber's ceiling, a darkness began. Drip not, shadow, but absence, a leaking wound in time. Shapes moved in it long, smooth, faceless. The Chronovores had arrived. Their hunger vibrated like tinnitus in Tessa's bones. They're eating the idea of us, Lyra whispered, her face pale. Tessa nodded once, then pressed the orb reborn and humming from her memories into the console. The future human inhaled deeply, lifted both hands, and sang. Not a song of melody, a memory. The sound of a child asking a question beneath stars. A mother's hand holding a telescope, a laugh shared under firelight. It rang out through the dying chamber and echoed. Across the breach in time, the Chronovores hesitated, then turned toward it. They followed. One by one, they slipped into the fracture, the black wound yawning wider to receive them, greedily dragging their writhing shapes away from the root of this universe. As the last one entered, the future human raised their hand and closed the fracture like a door. Silence. The archive was gone. The other versions gone, but Earth remained, and in its sky, for the first time in 1,000 forgotten years, the stars no longer blinked. In patterns of silence, they moved. New constellations appeared overnight. The moon whispered new tides. Humanity woke up different, they remembered. Tessa stood with Lyra on a hill overlooking the ocean. I thought we'd have to fight them forever, she said quietly. You would have, Lyra answered, if you'd chosen the version of you who did. But instead, you chose the one who listened. In the distance, the future human watched the stars as if greeting old friends. Tessa turned. Will we ever see the other paths again? Lyra shrugged, a sad smile on her face. Maybe, in dreams, in echoes, but for now, this path is all that remains. The wind shifted, a signal pulsed across Earth's satellites. This time, it wasn't a question, it was an answer. You are not alone. You never were. And above, in the gold-lit sky, a door opened not to erase, but to invite, and Earth stepped forward. Not as a lost species, but as something new, something remembered.